As we continue with our biblical discourse, we turn our focus to Genesis 41. This is the account where Joseph gets to meet Pharaoh. But now, before we just jump and pass by and we start interpreting Pharaoh's dreams and we see how does it relate to us in the 21st century, I want us to look at, when you start, I think it's verse 1, it tells us that it took Joseph 2 more years before he could meet up with Pharaoh. So, because remember in the previous chapter, he interpreted the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker, and they were released and they both met different fates. So now, when we turn to 41, it tells us, after 2 years, 2 full years, Pharaoh had a dream, and his dream needed to be interpreted, and all his magicians could not interpret the dream. So now the cupbearer so happened to be in the midst of the people, who were trying to interpret the dream, and he heard that, he remembered that, I myself once faced Pharaoh's wrath, and I found myself in prison, and there was a Hebrew boy. So look at that. So there was a Hebrew boy who was able to interpret my dreams. So Pharaoh made sure that they fetched Joseph. So as I was looking at it, like, my goodness, opportunity can show up when you least expect it. Because he was not expecting him, he was not expecting Pharaoh to call him, or he was not expecting the call, but he was ready nonetheless. I think that's the first thing that we need to extract there, that in all circumstances, let us wake up with the mindset that, this could be the day that the Lord sends somebody to fetch me to help with the affairs of the country. So once we start positioning ourselves as Christ ambassadors, that I have been placed in this generation to assist, this generation with something. So everything that I do it with diligence, and I become very attentive to detail. That everything I do, I'm doing it unto the Lord. And you never know. So that's the first thing that I saw, that opportunity can show up when you least expect it. And when they fetched him, he didn't just rock up. He prepared himself, he shaved, so that he knows he's going in front of a king. And that thing I saw is patience, family. That it took him 2 whole years. So he learned to develop and produce the fruit of patience, which is something that we need to develop in this microwave generation, where now we fail to give God 6 months to wait for him to respond to our prayers. So we need to get to a point whereby we develop the even if attitude. Remember when Daniel, Shadrach, and Abednego, they were about to be thrown into the fire by Nebuchadnezzar. And they told him, even if you throw us into the fire, we will not bow down to you. So we need to get to that point where once we can develop patience or know, even if God does not respond in the timeline that I've put for him, he's still God. He's still going to come through for me. Even if he does not come through for me, he's still God. We need to develop that kind of attitude. So that's one of the 2 things that I saw. So, but as I was looking at the story, I started thinking, the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of poverty, it can relate to the 5 aspects, or the 5 spheres of life, finance, family, friends, fitness, and spirituality, or what's this, faith. We can say faith instead of spirituality. So it can refer to faith instead of spirituality, the 5 areas of life. So we can start looking at that to say, as Joseph was interpreting the dream, let's bring it home, that we will experience 7 years of plenty and 7 years of poverty. But if you've got a godly plan by your side, how you experience those 7 years will not be the same. So let's look at this diagram. Let's look at this. So if we say that's poverty line, right? So it tells him you're going to have 7 years of plenty. So let's say this is the 7 years of plenty. 7 years high of plenty. But after the 7 years, you're going to experience lows in your life. But however, this is what I saw as I was looking at this. He says, if 7 years of plenty, but if you've got a godly plan, let's say marriage-wise, relationship-wise, Instead of experiencing the honeymoon is over, now reality check. Instead of experiencing 7 years of poverty in the lows, of scarcity in the lows, if your lows become somewhere here, you are still experiencing lows from a high perspective. You are low, but not below the poverty line. If you've got a godly plan, even economically, you can fall from a high, but do not go below the poverty line. You are still playing somewhere, that becomes your base. You are still above the poverty line, but you are experiencing lows. If you've got a godly plan with you, because that's what Joseph brought in Egypt. If we were to truly analyze them, that after he interpreted the dreams, like, you know what? If you can find a man who is wise enough to discern and be able to execute the plans that God has given Joseph, then you will be able to survive the famine. So, because the famine did come, that's something else I saw, that it was God who brought the famine, The famine will come, whereby now your marriage is tested, your finances are tested, your faith, your spiritual walk will be tested, but you are experiencing it from a high. That you have the first 7 years of everything will be plenty, will be awesome, will be a high. But when you fall, try not to fall below the poverty line, the mean. We call it the mean. And how you do that is by having a godly plan. So many other plans of a man, but it's God's purpose that shall prevail. So God gave Joseph a plan on how to safeguard Egypt. So now the question this morning is, has God revealed a godly plan to you on how to safeguard your life when famine comes, when it comes to your finances? That are you dependent on one income stream to a point where if a famine and there's an economic crash, will you fall way below when you experience lows? Because most of the time, when people fall lows very low, they struggle to recover. So once there's an economic crash or your marriage is tested, a child is sick or something, your health, fitness, once your fitness falls from a high and it starts going to a low capacity, what plans have you put in place, measures have you put in place to make sure that you safeguard yourself? Because that's what Joseph did for Egypt, to a point that by now, Pharaoh entrusted him with the execution of the plan. I think that's what I saw as I was looking at Genesis 41, that we need to be in a position whereby we safeguard ourselves. So just in case the 7 years of scarcity does come, have I put plans in place to safeguard myself? I think if